Kiah, thanks for coming on Kapow. I think this is your third appearance.
Always good to be on Kapow, sir.
We had zombies, we had demons, now a giant spider.
I'm working my way through all the monsters, aren't I? Here we are at Giant Spider. It was inevitable, you know?
Was there anything that attracted you to telling that type of story? Apart from being an Aussie, I guess.
I have intense arachnophobia, so if I see a spider, I can't move. And, you know, all the hairs on my arm go up and, like, I have, like, a visceral reaction. It's like it's a proper psychological issue for me. You know, because my job is to think up scary stuff and put it on screen, like, you know, that's what I do, like, for a living. So I sit around thinking about the most disturbing things for me, and then I write about them. And I've been thinking about this for like probably 10, 20, 30 years. Like, it's just a nightmare image that rolls around in my head because I have arachnophobia, is I look at a spider and I just go, imagine that was big. Imagine that was the size of a cat. Imagine that was the size of a dog. Imagine that was the size of a big dog. Imagine that bit you and incapacitated you and dragged you into an air conditioning duct and then lay eggs in you and ate you slowly over a period of time. And, you know, you can't move and it's eating you while you're alive. And I'm like, all right, that's the script, you know? So I had to write it, you know, to get it out of it because it's like a genuine thing that's just in my head.
You've got some little nods to other spider stories. The main character's name is Charlotte. Was it important for you to have homage?
I'm a super derivative dude, like, and like I think it's okay to, you know, just steal from your heroes. And I read Charlotte's Web when I was a kid, so obviously, you know, I mean, that's just more like an ironic thing. Like, of course you're going to call her Charlotte because, you know, that's a classic thing in popular culture. It's a girl who has a relationship with a spider, so you take that. And I grew up reading Stephen King's It, which, spoiler alert, is about a giant alien spider that eats children. And I loved the Machete movies that came out recently, but I was really disappointed. Again, spoiler alert, like, they don't do the spider thing in the movies. Like, it's just a giant clown, and at a certain point it's got 8 legs, but it's like, no, that's not a spider. Like, so I was like, look, if they're not going to do it, I'll just do it. And so, you know, this is really my nod to Stephen King's It, where like a giant alien spider is, you know, dragging children into sewer-like pipes and doing things to them. And also, my favourite book growing up was The Hobbit, and there's a whole section in Mirkwood where, you know, Bilbo has to fight, you know, a series of giant spiders, and all the dwarves get taken up into the trees and he's got to save them by fighting the spiders with his sword called Sting. And so, you know, that was all of these references, you know, I sort of put together in a pot and sort of wrote my own version of it, you know.
You've always been a lover of practical effects. There's some amazing stuff with What a Workshop. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Particularly with horror, I believe horror is a tactile medium, and I think you should utilize, you know, digital in movies as little as possible anyway, but especially in horror, because in a horror film, like, what you're trying to do is to convince the audience that a thing that isn't there is there. And so the more real it feels, the better. And if you've got to, like, deal with like any kind of uncanny valley issues, like the weight of a thing, or like, you know, maybe it's moving too quickly to feel real in your mind, you're putting yourself on the back foot immediately. And I find like a guy just wearing a sheet, you know what I mean? Like, in certain lighting is going to be scarier than a digital creation, like, because it's a real thing. And so if you've got a puppet or like, you know, a man in a scary monster suit, like, and he's interacting with the actors and with the lighting and, you know, maybe the rain or with smoke and all of that kind of stuff, like, your brain tells you that the thing that you're looking at is real, therefore it's a real threat. And so, yeah, like, I'll always push for practical. I'll always go with a guy in a suit, or, you know, a woman in a suit, or, you know, puppeteers and a puppet. If you're going to get any, like, creature creation, like, you know, Mount Olympus is the Weta Workshop. And when Chris Brown came on board, you know, he was co-producing with Jamie Hilton and Michael Ponton. He's just like, yeah, I know Richard Taylor. I've got his email. Like, how about I just ask him? And it's like, it was like, oh, can you email God? Like, does that actually work? And they emailed him, and, like, you know, Richard Taylor's just like, I've always wanted to do a spider movie, you know, send the script through and we'll have a look. And he looked at the script, loved it, the budget was right, and he goes, yeah, we'll do it. And I had a giant spider built by the guy who built Shelob for Lord of the Rings. It's like a massive, you know, bucket list tick right there. You know, it was an amazing experience working with them.
And it's a small cast, but it's a great cast. Can you tell us a bit about some of the people you got to pick?
What can I say? Where do I start? Like Noni Hazelhurst, Robin Nevin, some of the best actors in the country, like just phenomenal. Ryan Corr, I think he's got like a kind of Tom Hardy Brando-esque quality. Like, I mean, he's just disgustingly good looking and incredibly brilliant. Penelope Mitchell, like, you know, she's at the Actors Studio in New York. Like, she's over there working with like Paul Schrader. Like, I mean, everybody's good. I was just incredibly lucky. And Elila Brown, yeah, it was funny. Like, we knew that the film, you know, would live or die on the spider and the girl. Like, if we get either one of them wrong or both of them wrong, we don't have a movie. And we went to Nikki Barrett, you know, our casting legend, and we're just like, so we're going to have to start this search. We're probably going to have to look for thousands of people because, you know, we have to get the girl right. And she goes, shh, cast Elila Brown. Like, she goes, don't think about it. Don't search for anybody. Just hope she's available, because she'd worked with her on, you know, Furiosa and, you know, The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart and all of that stuff. And, yeah, I mean, I have to say, Elila Brown, I've worked with some amazing actors, but like, I've just never seen anything like it. Like, she's like Natalie Portman in Leon. Like, you're just looking at her, or, you know, Anna Paquin in The Piano. You're just like, how is somebody who's 12 years old this good? How, you know? And I still don't know how or why, but she made my movie better, so I'm very happy she was born.
One of my favorite things that I don't get to see very often is you made one of the lead characters a comic artist. Do you think it's an underused job in films?
I know I wanted to be a comic artist for years and years and years. Like, I obsessively collected comics, and like, yeah, I grew up like just obsessed with like Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and like, you know, Frank Miller and all those guys. Like, I desperately wanted to do that, and I tried, but I just wasn't quite a good enough artist. And so I became a filmmaker, and, you know, like, it's the next best thing, you know. So I do all my own storyboards, and that's as close as I can get to being a comic artist. And so, yeah, I didn't want him to be a filmmaker because that's a cliche, and it's not something really that he could share with his daughter, so that I could sort of weave the comics that they both work on into the narrative and into their relationship. And it's a very visual thing too. Like, a writer on screen is boring, but an artist on screen is always visually interesting. So, yeah, I've kind of wanted to do it for a while because it was the thing I always wanted to do before filmmaking. And yeah, it's kind of me like living vicariously through my lead character, you know.
I don't think there's enough comic artists in film, and I think we were seeing an enormous wave of comic films. It's great to know about the people that make the things as well. So hopefully we get to see that more.
Yeah, I mean, I love comic art. Like, we should see more of it. Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with you.
When can people see Sting in Australia?
The 11th of July, I believe it comes out. Go see it at the cinema. It's heaps better at the cinema. And it's one of those films that I think is enjoyable. Like, it's sort of like a comic horror in a way. I mean, in two ways, like literally and like figuratively, in that you can go and you can enjoy it, like with a big audience. You know, there's lots of scares and laughs and all that kind of stuff. And if people go to the theatre, we get to make more movies, you know? And that's the one thing I want to push is like, I make films that are theatrical experiences, and I really want to push that concept. So yeah, when it comes out, I hope people come and see it on the big screen, you know?
Beautiful. And a last one, can you talk about your next project?
Yeah, it's called Beast of War. It's a World War II giant shark movie. It's very, very loosely based on, you know, kind of the SS Indianapolis speech in Jaws, except it's Australian, and it's more based on our version of that, which is the HMAS Armidale that went down in 1942 between Darwin and East Timor, and a bunch of Aussies went in the water and just got eaten by sharks. And so it's a comic book movie though, Nathaniel. Like, Sting was almost classy. Like, this is me going back to my it's Wormwood with a shark. You know what I mean? So like, I'm looking forward to just doing a just balls to the wall crazy horror film again. And then I'll maybe go back and do something classy again, you know, and just like flip between the two.
Well, I can't wait. Thanks again for coming on the show, man. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks, Nate. Always good to talk to you too.